Welcome to the weekly portion of Beshalach, and as you know, we started reading the first verse of the Haftara, which is a selected reading from the prophets related to the weekly portion, and we will talk a little bit about the origin of this practice, the practice of the Haftara, the custom of the Haftara, in the coming 3 weeks. First idea that was suggested and is still very popular among traditional views is that the Haftarah started when the Jews were not permitted to read from the Torah, oftentimes accredited to the time of Antiochus Epiphanes, the famous Antiochus of Hanukkah, of the celebration of Hanukkah, going back to the 2nd century before the Common Era. The claim is that Jews were not permitted to read from the Torah, so they read something corresponding from the Nevi'im, from the prophets, rather than the Torah, the law, instead of reading the Torah. Very popular view. However, listen, it seems that it would be very, very specific on the part of Antiochus Epiphanes to say, oh, don't read that book of your tradition, but you can read that book of your tradition. That level of specificity in prohibiting the study of the scriptures seems to be a little bit outlandish on the part of Antiochus Epiphanes. So I am less convinced by this idea. We'll present other ideas in the coming weeks. I'll read the first verse of the Haftara, and then we'll talk a little bit about the grammar, and then present a question about the connection between something in the weekly portion and something from the prophets. This is, by the way, the longest Haftara, starting Judges 4:4 all the way to Judges 5:31. And let's read it. Udvora isha nevi'ah אשת לפידות היא שופטה את ישראל בעת ההיא. This weekly portion is talking about the Exodus, obviously, including the Song of Moses, and the Haftara talks about the story of Deborah and Barak against the Canaanites, and the Song of Deborah equivalent to the Song of Moses. That's the reason we read it this week. Now, let's talk a little bit about the grammar here. Go back to some grammatical basics. Isha nevi'ah. So we have a feminine singular noun and another feminine singular noun or an adjective functioning as modifying this noun. These are both these are both nouns, but they modify one another, saying a woman prophet. Okay, a prophetess, as you can see in the translation. Devorah isha nevi'ah. That's a nominal sentence. Devorah is a proper noun, making it definite. And isha nevi'ah is a noun phrase, okay, which is indefinite. Okay, definite subject with an indefinite predicate, be that an indefinite noun or usually an indefinite adjective, creates a sentence. So Deborah was a prophetess. This may certainly be perceived as a sentence and not just as an opposition as suggested in the translation. Now, Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lapidot, was judging Israel, but rather Deborah was a prophetess. She was the wife of Lapidot. This certainly may apply here. And note that Isha is feminine singular in the absolute, and Eshet is feminine singular in the construct. Okay, so Devorah Isha Nevi'ah could be a sentence in and of itself. In the context here, the translation is not a bad translation. Feminine singular, Eshet Lapidot, wife of Lapidot. Okay, the construct form of the noun means of. However, the word lapidot, here translated as a name of a person, which is certainly possible. In among the rabbis, we don't know the name lapidot, so there are some rabbinical commentaries who exegete the word lapidot in a very different way. Moving on to the second half of this verse, He shofeta et Yisrael ba'et hahi. So he shofeta is again feminine singular. You can see the ending of nevi'ah, isha. One would even say devora and shofeta. Specifically, it's a feminine singular participle of the kal binyan in the active. Okay, because the kal has two type of participles. That's the only binyan in Hebrew which has two participles. Shofeta, as a participle, can function basically as a noun, adjective, or verb. Here it functions mainly as a verb. You can see the word order with the subject coming first, and then the participle, which functions like a predicate in this case. She was judging Israel at that time. You can see that the participle here functions as a verb and thus requires an explicit subject. Usually the word order in a participial clause, when it is independent, it is subject, then the predicate. Et Yisrael, et is a definite direct object marker. She was judging Israel. Ba'et hahi, that's essentially a prepositional phrase serving as an adverb answering the question of when. So thus an adjunct or a complement, if you will, of the participle functioning as a verb, shofeta. She was judging. Whom was she judging? Israel. At what time? At that time. So both of these are related to the verb, either as a direct object, shofeta et Yisrael, or as with a prepositional phrase functioning in generally speaking in adverbial manner. Now, question, right? We need a question. So we said the song of Deborah is in the weekly portion of Beshalach. And you remember that Miriam, we have very strong women today, right? Deborah and Miriam. Miriam goes after the parting of the sea and celebrates the parting of the sea with tambourines and dancing. Which other two victories in the Bible are celebrated also betupim umcholot, with tambourines and dancing? And that's it. Thank you, Ryan, for your correct answer of last week.